This is not a dumb question at all. This is actually a great question. This person asks or says, this may be a dumb question. Why do we import and export natural gas? It's actually a great question. It is because the vast majority of natural gas that we import to cities that are run along the U.S.-Canadian border. That's where we import gas to, because for decades and decades, the U.S. was not a huge natural gas producer. And Canada is abundant in natural gas, especially in these areas. And it was literally the closest route was just to run pipelines from Canada to these cities along the northern border. And keep in mind, it's not a lot. This is not like a ton of natural gas that we're importing. It's just easier to provide this natural gas to these customers along the border because that infrastructure has existed for decades. We're not going to build new pipelines all over the country to supply natural gas to these cities from the U.S. when it already exists right there. Conversely, we export, and this isn't a large amount of natural gas either, we export some natural gas into Mexico along the southern border. But most of our natural gas exports come in the form of LNG, liquefied natural gas, which is shipped across the ocean. Just because a border exists, an imaginary line between two countries, doesn't mean that it makes sense to route something from much farther away. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we import natural gas along the border. We also import and export electricity along the border too. There's areas where we generate electricity in the United States that actually ends up in Canada and vice versa. So keep in mind, we produce far more natural gas than we need. If we didn't import a drop from Canada, we would be fine. We would just have to build new pipelines to those cities. But we export 2.5 times more natural gas than we import. So it's not really a function of need. Like, we don't need their gas. It's just much easier and cost effective for it to work that way. We have more natural gas than we need by far. And I'm not saying this about you at all, but for some reason in the last few years, this idea of importing anything has gotten so negative. There's so much negativity around it. There's nothing wrong with importing what you need. If we didn't import anything, we probably couldn't export anything. That's how trade agreements work and stuff. No, that's why we import natural gas. It's just so much easier and cost effective to do it that way. Yeah. Thanks for the question.